Yeah. That's the way.
Good evening, all.
Yeah.
It's this first Environment Committee meeting of the new council year. I believe we have Udo Dobbs, Steve Haynes and Howard Moore due to talk to us in public session about the Twin Association request for a ball court. Would you like to, if you've got, how long is it?
3 minutes or your discretion, Jen.
Yeah, thank you.
Not 15.
Yeah. So would you like to
Oh,
talk to us?
okay, well, I'll read you this. Hopefully I can read it in 3 minutes. If it takes longer, we can.
That's fine.
I was asked by Buckingham Twinning Association to look into a permanent ball court, considering the complexity of organising the annual tournament that has been held in the Capricorns for many years. You're probably aware of that. Such a ball court will of course not be for the exclusive use of Twinning, but be a facility for all of Buckingham. That's an important point. Therefore, in 2024, Howard facilitated the meeting with Buckingham Town Council, for which I proposed a permanent ball court on behalf of Buckingham Twinning. It was followed by a meeting with Claire Molyneux and Lee Phillips. I proposed my preferred location between the tennis courts, and I can keep this a lot briefer if you like. My first proposal was between the tennis courts and the basketball court in Chandos Park, because it's a very nice green area. It has the advantage of potential car parking nearby. I'm sure we could always use Chandos' car park if we're doing it on the evening, and also there are public toilets right opposite, which I think is also an important feature. It was at the time rejected on the grounds that it floods. Although my argument is, yes, it has flooded, and it does flood maybe a couple of times a year, but not all the time. And so I don't think that would be a major problem. And it is a very good location. And anyway, we have built, or the council, the town has built facilities, children's play areas, for example, in areas that flood. I mean, I've seen some of the children's play areas underwater myself. Particularly as I have grandchildren, I've visited virtually all of them. My second mention was one or other of the concrete areas either side of the new skate park. Again, we have toilets very close by, and obviously the public car park. This was also rejected on the grounds that it can flood. I noticed the skate park was underwater on occasions too. So again, boulders is a summer sport, and it's very unlikely to be underwater in the summer. I then looked at another alternative, which was the area next to the Scout building in Embleton Way. I didn't think that was likely to flood, or it was destroying it for all of us if it did. But I contacted Buckinghamshire Council, because I understand that area comes under Buckinghamshire Council. I contacted Buckinghamshire Council, and I simply said a very short question saying, who did I speak to, please, in relation to this? I wasn't given anybody to speak to, I was simply told them no. Because apparently it is a green space, or is a green space, and they wouldn't allow it on that. But for those reasons, I did look up the definition of a green space, and it does include play areas. So I don't think a ball court would contravene green space. What's more, I tried to do a little map and try from Google Maps and scale it out, and I think our ball court would probably occupy somewhere around 1% of the total area. So I don't think it would interfere very much. So anyway, that's potentially still a possibility. Then, thanks to John Harvey, that last year, around about Christmas, before Christmas, I was advised that green space opposite the church is also Buckingham Town Council's place, and would potentially also be in there. And again, there's car parking and there is a toilet there. I did contact the rector. I'm not sure who's the right person. Will Pearson Green, sorry. I contacted him and asked him what his views were, and he said he had no objection as long as we didn't put a ball court right in the middle of the green area, because obviously they do use it for various events. My suggestion would be near the Hill House, which is to one side and would not interfere with the church's use of the main part of the grass area. So those were the areas that I suggested. It has since been suggested to me by Howard that possibly the new cemetery area might have some space next to it, as obviously there are going to be allotments, and we thought maybe that area could also be considered. So really that sort of sums up my investigations, if you like. I wrote this document and I've emailed it to various people on the council back in February. So it should be about, you should have access to this document. And that's really it. I mean, I did not address funding. I thought if we could at least discuss the possible areas, and then perhaps if one of them or two of them are, could be a short list, we could then take it a step further.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Does either Howard or Steve want to add anything to that?
First of all, we tend to think of it containing sand, which is what we use down in the Market Square. Other vehicles do not use sand; they use a gravel, which sinks rather than floats or away with the water if it is flooded. Winslow has got a Builders Court, which is used fairly often. They've got their Builders Club now running, and it was paid for by, I think, the New Homes Bonus or Schedule 106 money. I'm not too sure which. So this one would be about the same size and price probably. But it's no point in getting any price until we know when.
Okay. I've got, what I will say is it is on the agenda for us to discuss this. Okay. However, let me just ask you some questions now, and then when it comes to discussing it, I'm afraid you won't be able to speak unless we decide that we will suspend standing orders in order for you to do so. So I think this now is the opportunity for members to ask you any questions, really. Got Councillor Dreyfus first, I think, and then Councillor Schaefer.
Howard's already answered my question. I was going to ask about what the surface was going to be, whether it be sand or gravel.
Anya?
So I've got two questions. One is about one of the locations you were looking at either side of the skate park. You're aware that is Buckinghamshire Council's land, not Town Council's, unless I'm super mistaken here.
No,
So I don't know whether you approached them and got the same non-response or got the same response on that one.
There isn't a lot of them there.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that because nobody made me aware of it till just now. So no, I didn't.
And the other question, Howard has sort of partly talked about this, and that is a question of how much it would be used, because it's obviously great that it wouldn't be just for the twinning, but do you get a sense of what demand there would be? You say the Winslow one is used fairly often. What does fairly often mean? Once a month, once a week, every day?
I don't know, because I haven't contacted. I was looking at the area and the logistics of having one. I'm not leading on it, Udo is.
Yeah.
I'm just facilitating some of the conversations that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I have not done a detailed research into how often the Winslow Court is used. I would probably have to go and stand next to it. Because they're going to do very accurate number, but no, I don't know, but the people I have spoken to have all been very positive.
Okay.
That if there were a facility, they'd use it, obviously because there isn't one, they can't.
No, I'm asking the question
Yeah.
because obviously for our
Yeah.
deliberations later, the likely demand will play a role.
Yeah.
Well, I think I can add that if it wasn't Chandos Park, as the Winslow one is convenient to Bill's Car there, it is something that goes together, and there's toilets and refreshments and so on.
Okay. Any other questions?
No,
Anything else you'd like to add briefly before we move on to the
No, I think
start of the actual meeting?
covered. Anything else?
Okay, thank you very
And
much.
you have the document if you need.
Yeah, we do,
Yeah.
it's on the agenda.
Thanks.
So thank you. We will now start the meeting properly. You're more than welcome to stay and listen to our meeting and debates on it's item 7. Shall we bring that forward in front of the community wildlife?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. It's only in a minute, just to know
Yeah.
there's nothing, no
Yeah,
changes.
yeah, so there's a couple of things first. Okay, so we'll start the meeting properly. Item 1 on the agenda is to elect a chair of the Environment Committee for 2025-26. Lisa.
I'd like to propose councillor Lucy Draper.
I'll second it.
Robin, you have your hand?
Fine.
Okay.
No, it's fine.
Any other nominations for chair? Well, we'll have a vote on that then. All those in favour of Lucy being the chair of the Environment Committee, and that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, you know.
It's not a comfortable chair. I better warn you.
I think I'm just more comfortable than these.
I'm not convinced.
Congratulations.
Well done.
I'm not sure how to mess this up. So item 2 on the agenda, apologies for absence. We have apologies from councillor Newell, from councillor Singh, and also from councillor Shaver, who will have to leave a bit early. Do we accept those?
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you. And then item number 3 is the election of a vice chair. Councillor Davis.
I'd like to propose councillor Ruth Newell for the position of vice chair.
Councillor Stutchbury.
I'd like to second that.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Okay,
I shall just point out that I have spoken to Ruth, and she is happy with being nominated for the position. So yeah,
I'm just saying that in a car,
show of hands, all those in favour of. That's unanimous. Folks, then we'll move on to any declarations of interest. No. And then, so we're moving. You need to agree the minutes first.
Yeah.
So the agreed minutes of the Environment Committee, which was held on the 7th of April, we've all had copies.
Agreed.
Agreed. Lovely. So then we'll move item 7, which is to note a letter from Twinning Society, up, and we'll have a look at that now.
Voted on, Chair.
We
Suggest just note the minutes of the Community Wildlife Group.
Okay.
Well, we're at it, yeah.
yeah,
Cool. Are we happy to note?
Yes.
yes, it is.
Yep.
Okay, so now we'll go on to item 7 on the agenda, which is to note the letter from Twinning Society, which obviously we've just heard read out. So any thoughts? Councillor Stutchbury.
Yeah, I read the document. It's about abortion, where and whatever. And then for you, Chair, it was agreed finding a funding school for it. The skate park belongs to Buckinghamshire Council, but it's in trust from the Lions Charitable Trust. It's a charity piece of land which Buckinghamshire Council inherited from the district, who inherited from the borough. The land up on Embleton Way would seem logical place, although the land is deemed as open space, and that would need a careful conversation around the legalities of that. I fear they'll come back and say no, and I'm not going to say why I think they'll say no, but I think that would, from my point of view, the flood, it's near a scout hut which has got toilets and perhaps some cooperation done, and there is nothing comparable up there, and it's less likely to get interference with, and it might give something for the community up there to actually use if it was up there. You know, they've got something they could go and use, and there's enough people that then they might actually take up playing it on a regular basis. And
I can see that.
even now, thanks to the mayor, we haven't got to worry about walking around with a bottle of wine in Buckingham. Now the order's been lifted, it might make a good social piece. I think that would be my first option to investigate.
Yeah.
Chandos Park's quite congested.
Yeah.
The parking issues down there are historical and whatever. And so I think that's where we should attempt to get agreement to do it. In my view, I don't know if anybody shares that.
So, as I will say, the agenda item is just to note the letter, but obviously if we do want proposals, we can have.
Yeah, I mean, I'm proposing that if we were to, other members might disagree, that the practicalities of all the other options are equally difficult. There is always the heartland, but I expect we'll run into the same problem in the heartland as you would somewhere else. It's very much environmental area and one thing and another.
Councillor Davies and Councillor Harvey.
Thank you. So the bit between the tennis courts and as referred to the baseball court, but the mugger in Chandos Park was where the tennis club were looking to try to put some paddle courts in, wasn't it? And we thought that was probably squashing things into that area, really. So if there is something to be done there, I think the tennis club have possibly got first dibs on it. And yes, it floods. The skate park area, but that's the same thing. With as has been said, I don't think the church green is a good place to go. I think that church green is somewhere which needs to be protected as the space that it is. And there isn't great car parking around there. The Chandos Park is, I'm like, the parking there is a nightmare for anything, either the higher ground or the between the tennis courts and the mugger. So I think I'd agree that to go forward with those 5 areas suggested, I would say that for the adjacent to the Scout building is probably the best place to look at. However, we do need to bear in mind that there is going to be more development coming on board in Buckingham, and whether we can incorporate that into some planning of a recreational space in one of the future developments that are coming up could be looked at.
Councillor Harvey, then Councillor Shea.
Yeah, I obviously the other night had a conversation about the church green. I guess I favoured that initially because I like the idea of that space being used more, because it is our space, and I think it could be a good place for it. But I think the third point about parking, it is the centre of town, and the parking in that area is difficult, sure.
Yeah.
I'm not wild about the skate park. I don't think it would fit in that area. It also be digging up another conflict as well. And it also would mean that the area around that, because you wouldn't dig up the whole thing, and that doesn't feel very foolish to have lots of concrete. So I think I'm with Councillor Davis. I think the best site really is Embleton Way, because there is ample parking up there.
Yeah.
And I think the notion that it's not open space is a bit of a silly one. The other option, of course, would be the new green space on the Tinswick Road that's taking an age to be finally finished. But there is quite a lot of green space up there either side, north, all the east and west, I suppose, of that estate that we will be taking over at some point, I think. So in principle, I agree with the idea. I think what I propose that we at least write to the Shire Council and raise this now. No, I don't know, but it will be raised from the floor, Councillor.
That's that, I believe Councillor Sturchman already said that he can propose that.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's what I said in the on, that if we agreed it was today, we should write to them to clarify it.
Okay, well,
If it was agreed,
Yeah.
I didn't know whether it would be agreed, it's just my view.
I was gonna
I
second
think
it, but
it might
come on,
not even be
second.
agreed then.
It doesn't bother me who proposes or seconds.
No, that's fine, John. Yeah.
It's good to write, I think, to the Shire, to say, let's carry it like this a little bit and see where that takes us.
Yeah.
In terms of funding, I guess, section 106, new homes bonus, gone, of course, now. Section 106 or still in the other way. Or of course, HS2 funding might be the sort of thing we get a bit in for HS2, maybe, or at least the organisation, building association can make a bid for that. That's what I would say. But round that on the other way, it gets a bit soggy. Even though it's very high ground.
Everywhere gets soggy in Buckingham.
It's not suitable for football, for example, it gets too soggy from what I've heard before.
I mean, I would say this agenda item was to note the letter, so I wouldn't want any, no decisions really to come out of it. I should clarify to members, I've spoken in quite a lot of detail with Lee about this. He is absolutely adamant that anywhere that floods would not be suitable because it will wash the gravel into the grass, and then obviously when it's been mowed and trimmed, you're going to have gravel everywhere. We did think the higher ground at Chandos could potentially be a better place. It is, at least it's high enough up there, it very rarely floods up that high. I've forgotten where I was going with this. The church green is obviously a village green, so there may well be issues around that. Being able to be up there. And in regard to funding, would be really clear. Any suggestion if it's going to be section 106 new homes, we would really have to demonstrate that there was a need and a desire for it. So that would require quite a significant chunk of work to evidence that the community, this is what the community would want their money spent on.
Councillor Schaefer.
I kind of think most of the things have been said yet. So I was going to say we probably will need to bring this forward to a future meeting and have a proper proposal around it. And forgotten where I was going with this. Sorry, I listened so intently. I quite like the idea of incorporating it into the plan for the recreational area of a new estate, because I kind of think that purely in terms of getting a site for it, that is likely to be preferable. And the reason why I was asking about what evidence we have from surrounding places like Winslow, how much it's used. So I think that is where that would have to come in terms of the funding, that we need significant evidence that this was the kind of sporting facility that would really add and would be highly desirable in Buckingham, as opposed to other types of sporting facilities. But I personally really quite like the idea. That means we still need to demonstrate we need that, as opposed to all sorts of other sporting things. Having said that, of course, this one has been brought to us.
And I suppose one of the things that I would say, and as Ugo said in his report, a ball court is quite small in comparison to, say, a football pitch or
Yes.
a tennis pitch or a netball court, and
That is true.
Unobtrusive, and can often be kind of a quite nice addition in conjunction with other bits and pieces part of the recreational area. I think that there is a person who can stuff to say.
I was just going to say that I had a conversation with Lee about
whether it was the contingent rain green spaces might be a suitable place, and it's not on the cards at all because of it has to be kept without any sort of building up there. There's no toilets, there's no parking. It's not somewhere that would be suitable at all. So while I thank Councillor Harvey for suggesting it, I think that to look in the future, rather than trying to slot it in, look into the future, it needs to be planned for.
Thank you.
Yeah, the home bonus doesn't end 2026, 2027, although it's been banged on the head of the screen. That's disappearing, but that won't disappear to them. But most new home bonus isn't like the days that when the district council allocated it to local need, it's absorbed by the Buckingham council in their total. So that's a no-no. When you look at, I had a meeting the other week discussing development to present and whatever. There's about 1,000 houses being built out in Buckingham at the moment. All of those are in agreements or partway through agreements. So really you're looking for the next chunk of houses, which if you were going to go down that route, which come on, which is actually most likely one which working its way through the process hasn't been determined. Not comment on the application, just the process is the Bourton Road. When I say Bourton Road, I mean the triangle of his land in Bourton Road near Bourton Park. That's the only one I can think of which is good if anywhere advanced enough that it would do it. The disadvantage that we have from town council's point of view is getting involved in the discussions of the development section 106, and we've had this for many years. When you do the detailed plan out for section 106, town council never really has been given the where you ought to do it, and the only time we've ever achieved it in any great sense was when we asked to have the football pitches included into Maid Morton Road 3, even though at the time we were objecting to it. We had a dual approach on the section 106 and agreements. I think we need to maybe investigate it at another meeting what options we want to go to. I know the mayor's point about going to a new development. I fear there will be a legal reason why it can't go at Embleton Way. But I think the question can be asked, because you never always get the same answer, the same persons. Just because we think there is that, we're not legal officers of another authority. So I think we just need to go like that. And I think it's one of the things we should take into consideration with everything, because we've got other wish lists of people who have come to it before, like as the mayor said, the tennis club and other people. So this is at a queue of people wanting stuff delivered. So we need to sort of almost consider it all in the round. But I do think the future developments is going to be where we may get some success, because it will be funded out of the development contributions if it makes its way into the agreement, because otherwise we're into other funding which is difficult to obtain.
So again, I appreciate that you haven't asked for a decision, and this agenda item isn't to make a decision on any of this, but I'm aware that you did kind of want a bit of a short listing. So I think if I can summarise the points that have been made, and if I'm wrong, you can all tell me. That the most out of the 5 sites listed here, the most appropriate option in terms of facilities and placement would seem to be the land adjacent to the Scout Building on Embleton Way. However, there is the issue of Buckinghamshire Council not wanting to have it there for whatever planning or legal reason that may be standing in its way. But in terms of it not flooding and it being a nice flat space, which already has a Scout hut with toilets and parking,
And a community.
and a community nearby, you know, there are houses nearby, it's not kind of stuck out on the edge of town in the middle of nowhere. Probably joint after that would either be the Church Green or that high end of Chandos. Again, because it's not gonna flood, and I think that's the primary concern with the other ones. Obviously, the skate park's not Ireland anyway, and between the tennis courts and tennis court and the mugger in Chandos Park, as Councillor Davis said, it would be kind of trapped in between the other two. B, there is a risk of, well, it will flood, and when it floods, it will pull the gravel onto the grass, and then when the green spaces team try and mow the grass, it will fling shrapnel everywhere and probably dent their blades. So if that wasn't too much of a ramble to shortlist, I think, yeah. But again, as has been said, we do have new developments coming into place, and each of those new developments, in my opinion, should have a recreational area for recreation of people of all ages, not just children that want to climb on a climbing frame, teenagers that want to play sport, and adults that might want to play something like ball as well. So I do think we need to keep this on the agenda, or can we move it on to the next?
Would members like a report from Lee and myself to the next meeting?
That sounds
Yeah.
a really good idea.
Very good idea.
Mm.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'll do that then.
Cool, thank you.
Do we need to vote on it?
I do need to vote on it.
No, because it's been brought to the next agenda, because this is not an agenda item.
It's some item number 7 to note.
Yeah, we note,
Yeah.
yes, we can
Yeah.
note, yeah.
I haven't discussed.
We note it and we wish for further information.
And we come
Yeah.
bring it back here.
Do you need to vote on that?
No.
If it's, as I would suggest that it's an offer from myself rather than members requesting, just take my word that I'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you very much, Jenny. You're welcome to stay and listen to the rest. However, I do have more to do. Your time. Leave.
Super.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to item 8, which is Buckingham Primary School, speeding and parking, to receive and consider a response to correspondence from Buckingham Primary School.
I should have said this at the beginning, really. I am a governor of Buckingham Primary School. So if you wish me to leave while you discuss this, I will
I mean,
gladly do so.
do you have a pecuniary
I
interest?
don't know.
No,
It's
you're
something else I do for free.
Yeah, I think you'll be all right to stay and listen at the very least. So we've had, do you want to talk about this or do you?
I can talk about it if you'd like, Chair, or you can talk about it if you would like. How would you like to approach
I'll
them?
talk about it. Until I lose what I'm doing and then you can talk about it. So we've had a letter from Buckingham Primary School requesting for a speed limit reduction in parking improvements on Highlands Road and Foskett Way. So this is from the Health and Safety Governor at Buckingham Primary School. They're raising several concerns regarding road safety, the vicinity of the school, particularly with respect to traffic speed and ongoing parking issues. BPS is a large school and busy nursery with over 420 children accessing the site each day. 2 main pedestrian entrances, Highlands Road and Foskett Way. Obviously during peak times, they experience a high volume of pedestrian traffic as well as road traffic. School have done efforts to promote walk to school initiatives, include reminders about safe driving newsletters and involving the local police, however haven't seen any significant improvements. The request would be to reduce the speed limit from 30 miles per hour to 20 miles per hour, so as not to disrupt onward traffic flow or affect wider travel patterns. Self-contained road used exclusively by school and local residents. Yeah. So I think Lisa and then Councillor Statutory.
Thank you. I'm all for any school wanting safety features outside, but just a word of caution really to the school. Zigzag lines don't always make a heck of a lot of a difference, because I have video proof that parents are still parking on them anyway, and that includes the Keep Clear school wording, the yellow lines, the zigzaggies, all of it. And we also have to deal with the dead end road in 2 locations with Jarman and the end bit. So yeah, I'm all for assisting them as much as we can as a council, because I think all of the primary school and all of the schools need help on this issue. But yeah, it's more of a caution to them. It might not actually make a heck of a lot of a difference. Thank you, Chair.
Well, we already, Anthony Ralph brought something in the previous council, motion to council that we support 20-mile-an-hour limits. So we already support the outside schools. We tried to get our Buckinghamshire Council to support that. They were not. One of the things which changed up there to what's changed before was 2 things really. One is there's likelihood that the idea of 20-mile-an-hour limits outside schools looks like it might be something that the government's going to support. They haven't made any legislation on it, but there's been noises around that, so that actually helped move it forward a bit.
Yeah.
The other thing is that we need to consider that when it comes to future contributions for education, at the moment, Buckingham Primary School seems to be the favoured place to receive funding for primary and middle school type education. So my view is that it's rather Buckinghamshire Council who need to take a long hard look at putting more and more children into the school. And if they are going to put more and more children in the school, there'll be an increase in traffic. The reason I say Buckingham Council, because do any change in it, it would probably need a traffic order and an investigation, which will be £20,000 plus for someone to actually look at it. But it has to be legally sound. You can't just introduce it. I think this is something I'm happy to support. I'm very happy to help try and achieve it. So my 2 suggestions out of that is, one, I would propose that we write to Buckinghamshire Council and ask them, are they minded to consider this in light of the fact that they've signalled it for new education. And it would be a good opportunity in that funding stream that they've got for education. That would cover the next question. We think we've got no money for a traffic order. That would probably cover the traffic order, so it would get funded. So to them then come back and say why they would want it. Then if the legislation passes, I think it probably will do at some point, we will almost get it by default, won't we? Like we might even when they get a 30-mile-an-hour on the Tinjut Road.
I've just come to Clark.
I'll defer to the clerk.
I would say that at this stage, what the letter is asking is if some councillors would like to come down and actually have a site visit. So I think that's the request they're making in the first instance. So I would just nudge members towards the potential of whether or not anyone would like to make that site visit.
Before I go to John, can I have a show of hands of anyone that could potentially be interested in going for a site visit? The entire inquiry.
Double size of the school.
Yeah. Just no one drive there.
I actually went to school there, so.
Yeah. John.
Okay, a couple of points. I think we've already established at the previous meeting that we cannot have a motion to write a letter because that's not on the agenda. So
I can write them on my own.
you could write a letter, of course you can. That's stop you writing it, but in terms of official letter, we are not empowered to do that under standing orders.
I would, sorry to interrupt, councillor, do you want?
It does say
It's on the agenda.
consider a response to correspondence is the agenda item. And I would say that the best way to respond to correspondence is with correspondence.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, well, let's. Okay, right, we're refining things a little bit, yeah, okay.
No.
Next point.
I'm very surprised there's no zigzag outside it, because I would it's standard fare for any school, and although I take on board what Councillor Donahue says, people still going to ignore it. By having it there, it does at least give the school, teachers or whoever might be out there to say, you can't park here, zigzags, you're off. They may not do it, but you can at least enforce it, and that's why I think, speed limits are important, because you can comply with it. And if people want to choose to go beyond the speed limits, well, that's there, look at, but it is empowers those of us who think safety is a really important thing to be able to follow that, seems a bit like on the road between here and Bristol.
Yeah.
I always struggle with it. So I think it's something that we ought to certainly, whatever correspondence we're allowed to initiate as our response to this item, it should certainly include that why on earth is a zigzag lines then represent. That is really important.
But Robin, then Fran, then Andy.
Yeah. I don't think we did actually agreed with, I suppose, I don't think we,
I'll second it.
in which case, if we can clear that up before
Okay, yeah,
I'd say the next thing I was going to
So-
say.
councillor Sutherland, could you just say
I
what the
propose that
vote
we write to Buckingham Council with the expression that we'd like to support that.
Is stepping aside, the agenda item is to agree a response to this letter.
Yeah, well, we
Well,
can,
that's not response, yeah, that's not response to that letter, is it? That's another
Request.
letter, isn't
Invite
it?
to visit
Which is what John's point was.
Yeah. Because I think it says, obviously, something.
well, in which
No.
case,
Can I make a suggestion?
if I make a suggestion,
That in our response to BPS, we accept their invitation and also express our desire to write to Buckinghamshire Council in support of the application, if that is what they would like us to do.
I'll second that.
yeah. Yeah. Right, then we'll vote on that then.
Okay,
Okay.
everyone in favour?
Yeah.
All those in favour, not
Right.
sorry, not telling them.
Which case, what I'm going to say is that, I will personally, take on board writing to them. We're all supposed to be corporate parents, Buckinghamshire councillors. I think it's a corporate parent issue. And see where we can get with that. But by the time we get to agenda discuss, that will be a long time after. It might actually help to have that response.
Yeah.
Quicker, being as we can't actually do that.
Yeah.
The other point is that I think that I said about if it was agreed that it needs to come from the contributions to the school, but that's something we do need to look in conjunction with what the contributions are in there, so that we're detailed on it. I know what's there because of my conversations. That's my conversations. That isn't the same as this town council. So I think we need to look at that detail, because depending upon the response, that can form part of our response at a later day. Now, of course, when the agenda items drafted, it is we'll have to wait for another cycle of the agenda to do it, because we bunched ourselves into a corner. So I don't know whether that's something we should pursue again. But I think just the whole point of this agenda item and trying to bring points over. Yeah, but it will just sit there for another cycle of the council.
I've agendaed it in this way because they want you to come and have a site visit so that you can see what the problem is firsthand before you make a decision on how you wish to approach the matter.
Yeah.
So that's
So we're not-
why it's agendaed in this way, so that a site visit can be arranged, members can go and see for themselves, and then it will come back for a future meeting once that evidence.
I can imagine it. I'm going to go, but I don't need to be there to see it because I know what happens outside Bourton Meadow. So, but yeah.
Fran, then Andy.
I'm not entirely sure where they would put zigzag lines, because knowing both vehicle entrances, exits of there, they are gates within residential roads. It's not like the school's got a frontage onto a road where you would normally have zigzag lines. So I'm curious to find out where they think the zigzag lines would fit in on that school. And I think we do need to have 20-mile-an-hour limits in various different places, but both of those entrances and exits are cul-de-sacs. So if anybody is getting up to 30 mile an hour in there.
Yeah.
The amount of parked cars, then there's a major issue with their driving.
Yeah.
I don't know that legislating with a 20 mile an hour limit without having anything there to actually enforce that 20 mile an hour limit is going to make any difference. However, we do need to look at what measures can be put in place to ensure the safety of these children.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Councillor Davis has taken most of that, but
I'm sorry.
no. What the zigzag lines here, but I still think we should have a look at it. And I agree with Councillor Donoghue. Some mums will totally disregard zigzag line, and it happens everywhere.
Not just mums,
Dads,
taxis
and taxis. And I pick up my granddaughter from Newport Pagnell, and they have the same issue. Although the zigzag lines are there, parents do adhere to them, but there's a few that do not. And the way they enforce it is by this, as the Councillor Harvey said, speak to the driver and they're on zigzag line, the teacher, and just point out that they are on a zigzag line and they should stop doing it. But whether it will work forever and a day, no, because they will come back and do it again for a week.
We've got Lisa, Robin, Heather and John, and then we'll
yeah, so two things. When the 20 mile an hour was being discussed outside Bourton Meadow, a couple of people said that it could also be dangerous because drivers are looking at the speedo rather than looking at the car and worried that. But what Fran said about not getting up to past 20, we did that survey. There's no way you're going to get a car like a race around outside of mine. But also having somebody there to penalise them. The police don't want to know, they don't come out. And teachers are hesitant to get involved in that because they get shouted at and sworn at and threatened. And that is why the teacher for Bourton Meadow said that that's the reason that they don't go out. So I'll be very interested to see if the teachers at Buckingham Primary feel the same way, because I'd imagine they probably do.
Robin.
One of the things with that site, when I went there, which was only a week ago, obviously, to school, it used to drive from Highland Road all the way through school and out onto Page Hill, and it was a through road. Then it was stopped, and Highlands Road was not meant to be an entrance to school at all. It was, at the time, it was shut because it wasn't seen to be that. The way into school was seen to be in Page Hill, and lots of children came in by bus then. School's grown exponentially since then, and how it takes. And it's sat in a housing estate where all the roads were designed thinking it was going to be a through road. And of course they didn't want cars and vehicles driving through where children were playing, and one thing I know, that's why they put the gates up. Also at the entrance of Highlands Road, that's a private area. If you put zigzag lines out somebody's property,
That's what Fran said.
like Fran said, and then the other end it's the same. So really it's about probably seeing where the traffic parks, and I can imagine it's the drag. It's the drag because you know, unless they do open the gates and they tear in there and the gates are open. But I think that we're going to learn from the thing. I don't know how we will. I can imagine this isn't the first time the question's been raised. I'm just surprised it wasn't raised with the 3 Buckinghamshire councils who were Buckingham East long ago. And if anyone has been a governor there or whatever, I'm surprised they didn't follow it up at the time.
Thank you.
Who was a Buckinghamshire councillor.
Enough.
I'm just wondering if there's scope to have a broader conversation with them when we do go there, because it would seem to me that discouraging people from being driven to, you know, if we can get a bit more walking and cycling, if we can reduce the amount of idling outside the gate where there's going to be air pollution issue, that could actually achieve more than a 20-mile-an-hour zone, which people can't drive 20 miles an hour in the school. That's happening anyway. So
And
I don't see that having an impact.
they have tried to do some walk to school initiatives and things, but again, myself, Mark, Gately, Lisa and Fran did a idling and dangerous parking survey at Bourton Meadow School a few months ago, and yeah, it was pretty shocking, the results. So that's something that's been a kind of a recurring theme on this committee, is how do we get people to stop idling outside of schools, because it's horrendous. So yeah, we'll definitely look on that one.
Yeah, I think the Mothers Can group.
Yes,
somebody is on
yeah,
the
that's
way.
really good.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
I put some spikes in the road that come up about. I mean, the child's been hit, I mean, it can't
Yeah.
be worse than that, and that the child wasn't badly hurt, but the child would have been pretty shocked by that.
Yeah.
This is an area that needs so much.
Yes, agreed.
Conversations.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we move to the next item on the agenda then?
Yeah.
So it's item 9, and let's receive the budget, to receive the latest figures.
I move next business, there's not much to report on this.
Rosin?
Yeah, I think we should talk about some of it. It's money. I see that we've got sponsorship cancelled after June. Is that sponsorship for the roundabouts, which is 202? Is that going to? I presume that we're advertising it, and hopefully someone will come forward and fill in the gap in the sponsorship. So it helps covers the cost of them. Most of the other stuff I hear is sort of, we're only partway, even halfway through the year.
Not even that.
Not even that, but that one's the only thing that sticks out, because it's, and thankfully, it's been redlined for us to look at, to tell us it's there. So just prepare for the, I'm sure the answer is going to be absolutely yes, but preparing out to advertise for someone to fill it, but it should be done. Yeah.
Any other?
I'd just like to thank the Green Spaces team and the Clark office staff for the work they've done on everything.
Should we minute our thanks?
Yeah. And move to the next business, as John suggested.
Yeah. So item number 10, new cemetery allotments, to receive a report from the Estates Manager. I'm assuming it's you.
It is me. This is just a first draft, so similarly as we've done with other large brand new documents. This is just here in the first instance, please have a look through it. Any thoughts, concerns, please could you email them to Lee for consideration by the 4th of July, and then we will take them all on board, bring an amended document back to the next environment for finalisation.
Agree.
Robin.
3.4. Religious arrangements and agreements with the minister. I think we'd agreed years ago that this cemetery would be a public cemetery. How we got religious agreements, because there's going to be lots of different faiths in Buckingham in 15 to 25 years' time. If we went down the road to making this, we're going to cut off large parts of the community. Doesn't say particularly what it is. I did want to say that religious arrangements or agreements within the set ministers. I'm not sure why we've got that.
So it says on that part, so it says the grave spaces are unconsecrated. So the people who are taking charge of the funeral and requiring their burial plot to be blessed are responsible for making those arrangements. So we're not saying that we're making those arrangements. It's if you would like, it's a non-religious site, if you would like your plot, if I'm correct, if you'd like your burial plot to be blessed by a minister, then it's your responsibility to do that.
That puts my concerns away, because the calendar in 50 years' time won't be as it is today.
Yeah.
and it should be for everybody.
I believe that that's the basis that Brackley Road Cemetery works on at the moment, particularly in the newer bits. None of it's consecrated ground until or unless the older bits are,
Yeah.
but the new bits, the minister will bless the ground, as it were, as the funeral takes place. I believe that's the way most cemeteries work these days. Yeah.
I mean, so, it is a relatively complicated document and we are still looking at a few things ourselves. So any thoughts and comments, we'll take them all on board and bring a more complete document back to you for the next environment.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's nice and positive to have Derek's name on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And it's nice that was agreed with his family. Town clerk informed us that they were very pleased, Mrs. Isham, to have that out there. And I think it's nice that that's being progressed. And when it's eventually done, it will be a wonderful thing for the family.
Are we happy to receive? Oh, John, sorry.
Have we dealt with recommendation 1.1? We did vote on that or just react and send ideas?
Yeah, so I was going to say, are we agreeing to review?
Is that the point of 1.2?
So shall we take a vote then on 1.1, which is that we're going to agree to?
I second it if you're proposing it.
Yeah. Thank you. So let's just vote on 1.1 to review the attached first initial draft integrated cemetery handbook and email any amendments to the safety manager by the 4th of July. Those in favour? Unanimous.
Thank you.
It's
Independent.
it's also the day before Bruce's birthday.
Is it?
Oh.
So then if I can propose that we accept the recommendation of 1.2, which is that we.
Sorry, Chair, I've got a point to make about that.
Sorry.
I don't think we should, I mean, I think the principle, if it is just the principle that there should be an ultimate association, is a good one. But I don't think that can start, at least for a year or two, until, it's established and people get to know each other and so on. I don't believe an association like that can start right from the outset. I think we'll have to take responsibility to kind of manage it to begin with, and then it will shift there. I genuinely don't think it would be fair to create something so early on.
Sorry.
And the second point, if I may, is I'm intrigued as to whether we have to consult New College. I thought this land was our land now. I didn't know that there were, I don't know, something written in the contract whereby if we want to create our allotment rules, why the heck do we have to consult them?
I believe Lee has actually been doing a lot of research into and speaking with allotment societies about the creation of this.
3.2.6 is fully expected that we will have to handhold any new association throughout until they get themselves properly up and running. It would be nice to have member involvement or user involvement from the off. So,
yeah.
But we do fully expect that we will be doing a lot of the work until people get themselves properly set up and established. In regards to 3.2.5, there are caveats on that. They were always in all of the documentation that have been brought to council before. There are things that New College insisted as part of the land transfer, and they are things around sheds, greenhouses, not being able to build on it, etc.
I was just going to say, I believe that was in the contract when we purchased the land. I believe I remember having a conversation with Lee about that, and it does say 1.2 members agree in principle for the creation of a Derek Isham Allotment Association. It does need to be there to start off with, because it's not something that it can be evolving from the start, but you can't start something like that off without having some sort of structure in place and then try and bring it in later on, because people start to say, well, I was allowed to do that before, nobody said anything about that. So it's those rules and etc. The structure of it, the principle of it needs to be there in the first place. So I propose that we agree to item 1.2 recommendation.
Okay. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Shall we move on to the next item, which is 11, Morton Road, Phase 3, BMX track and rugby pitches.
As it says, really, the attached specification of the new BMX track. Lee and I are actually quite happy with this. We had a lot of concerns that it might not be done to a very good spec, but we're pretty happy with what's come back, and the standards and the roster report. And as the other quotes note, the progress of the new rugby pitch construction is still going to need to be done as per what's the name of the RFU standards anyway. But things are moving in the correct direction at the moment.
Councillor Stutchbury, then Councillor.
It was John.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Harvey, Councillor Stutchbury.
Okay, I just was trying to work out what the diagonal black lines meant in the sort of bottom part below the actual BMX track, because the housing is quite close to that track there, and I wondered, is this sort of just are these trees, are this a raised area to maybe mask some of the sound, maybe some of the sight. I don't know. It did. I looked for the key, and it didn't seem to actually indicate what that actually meant.
Which bit are you looking at?
Which page are you on?
I'm looking at the map.
Page 30 of 48, John. Is it that one?
It doesn't. Yeah, page 30 of 48.
Yeah. Okay.
If you look at the BMX track underneath it, there's like a sort of sweeping line, sort of going into the south. We just, black lines are diagonal. What is that? Do we know? Because there's nothing in the key that indicates exactly what that is.
I'm still not sure exactly what we.
So I think that was me.
It goes down like that on the plan.
Which bit?
Oh.
It's the bit that divides the sports
I think that's literally just going to be sort of raised, almost like from what it looks like to me, it would be kind of raised land, or is it?
Should we clarify that? Because I think it needs to be
You think the black? Did you say black bit or blue bit?
black diagonal lines.
It's
In
got like
1, 2,
hatching in it.
3 sections with a couple of
That's in
pathways.
trees and stuff there. And that's
I said I can't get.
Right, there's a bit here.
This bit.
So you've got the blue squiggle and then the black lines.
Oh,
It's just
It's
hedging.
what divides the sports area from the house.
Hedging.
Vegetation screening.
Just vegetation, is it?
Right.
So
Yeah.
planting the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hedgerow.
these,
Yeah.
look at it there.
Okay, I'm just conscious that there needs to be a good border between the housing and the sports area. People may not want to see people in sweating shirts. I think.
Enjoying themselves, you mean, John?
They may not want to hear.
Yeah, I'm just pleased it's progressing. I have had 2 meetings separately to this to discuss these pictures with an officer who assured me that he was talking to Lee about the this elements and that they are working together. The elements which we are outside our control on this are certain from this, and it was the drainage of these pictures to make sure they're functional, which was what part of my conversation was about with the officer. I also think that the fact that they've got them laid out and these things need to come on stream, it's going to be a while. I will see, I emailed again yesterday to try and find out a bit more about the drugs. This site, when you look at it, you have to try and look at stuff in their entirety where they sit. This site drains into the ditch on the outside of it. So most of the substance drains, these pools will collect some of the water, but it then ends up in the ditch, which runs down alongside Western Avenue and whatever. I am making sure, which Councillor Davis and I have been up there many a time, and because we have a problem on Chandos on Western Avenue with flooding already on Western Avenue because of the ditch. So I think that's something that we need to be conscious of. Maybe another conversation from another point would be a good thing, just to seek assurance around us as the conversation is going on, that they are confident that there will be a clear way for the water to get out. But what I'm worried about is when it's all up and working, and if we take these over, which I presume we will, we'll be the ones who then get asked to unblock the ditch and clear it down. Now, the landowners who sold us the development have done handsomely well out of this. I don't think it's unreasonable for us to continue seeing that the land that they own is not part of it. Those ditches are done out. So I would hope that conversation is going on, because the way this is gendered, I can't propose anything again. So just to note anything, I would seek through you, Chair, to ask what conversations have gone on about that, because we will just get the problem thereafter. That we own those pictures, you're draining your water in there and it's flooding me. We need to make sure we get that.
Would that be something, Claire, that when we do a project? Thank you.
Lee has had,
And would it be, sorry, would there be like a snagging thing before we were?
conversations around the rugby pitch constructions are still very much underway, which is why it's only to note, because we are still talking. Lee is very much on this. He's very insistent. The Grounds Maintenance Association, the organisation that I was struggling to remember earlier, have strict standards. I know he's been talking with the Federal 106 officer, and they're very much all working for the same leadership on that must be done properly. Thank you.
Leaving the open
Councillor
question.
Davis.
I propose that we agree the attached specification for the BMX track. I think it looks really good.
Yep. Yeah. Second.
Yeah.
All those in favour?
Thank you.
Nice. So shall we move on to?
We need to agree to note as well.
Maybe out of order or whatever, but is this land that if a golf court was ever to be considered could be built on?
No.
No, because I don't know what the space is like up there.
It's not in the planning permission or
Okay.
anything up there at the
Okay.
moment.
So should we agree to receive the report?
Yeah. Note the progress from the new rugby pitch.
You can write danger boards on it.
On the BMX track,
Thanks to the office as well,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's loads of work gone into this.
Yeah. Okay, so item 12, that is the benches survey, received a verbal update from Councillor Davis. I believe a video was emailed out for everyone. Obviously, we don't have permission to share the video due to the fantastic people that helped create it. Councillor Davis, would you like to?
Thank you. So I went to see the young people at Fursdown School, and they are very, very can't think of the word. They really want to become involved and do things. So keen, that's a good word. That's a really good word. Thank you. So I suggested to them, after Councillor Harvey had said about the benches survey, I suggested to them that if it would be something that they would be interested in doing, is to put together this piece of work, which I hope you've all had a chance to look at. I think it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely superb. I didn't ask them to go right into the parks or anywhere like that. It was purely the town centre and the area around Chandos Park, so the area that they've covered, because obviously there are some people who have got mobility issues and extra vulnerabilities. I think it's now, I think we're noting it, aren't we? That it's been done, we're receiving it, and then it is something that's on the action list. So where do we go from here with it? I think really is the thing. But I'd like to wholeheartedly thank those young people from First Down School for what they've done. I think it's brilliant, and I really, really would love to be able to work with them on future things. And I think next time we do the accessibility survey, we need to involve them in that, because they know these things more than we do.
Councillor Harvey, then Councillor Sturchbury.
Yeah, I watched the video in awe. I think it was just fantastic. And to get engagement and involvement from young people like that and thinking about something that matters to them, matters to us all, was just like, it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And a huge thank you should go to them in some shape or form. They raised lots of issues, back from the chairs, obviously, some of the benches by the bus stop and so forth. There's the idea of a circular bench around the three, near Specsavers there. Just really nice and neat ideas. And I think we need to bring that together and take it forward and evidence back to them that we've really heard what they've said, and we're taking it forward as far as we can within the resources and powers that we have. But I just think it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Robin.
Yeah. Are we able to make a decision on this? Because we've done a deal on it. Tonight, can we recommend or agree anything? Because it doesn't seem like any.
It's on the action report.
So can we make a decision then? There's nothing else we can tonight.
We have to wait till we get to the action report to talk about it.
Chair, what would you like? What do members want to come out of this? I suppose is the.
Well,
I mean, this is something that is already very much in progress, so it's not as though we're starting from scratch.
As Councillor Davies has been taking the lead on this, and it's in her project, what would you?
I think, well, like Councillor Harvey asked for a bench survey, we've now got a benches survey. So the young people have identified certain places where they would think that they would like to see something. So I think from their video, we now need to come forward and look at feasibility of placing benches in those areas. We have got 2 benches which are kicking around somewhere, which need siting somewhere, which I believe Councillor Sturchbury arranged to be collected from Villiers.
May I suggest then that we bring the report back with the feasibility done based on the video?
Absolutely.
Agreement at the next.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Are you offering that, Claire, so we don't have to vote on it?
I am offering.
You're not allowed to vote on anything. I think he's asking offering this is the.
If you would like to vote on it, if you
No.
I think that's the best thing to do with it.
You can propose for a report to be brought to the next meeting.
It was unfortunate that they finished doing the video a couple of days too late to go on the previous Environment Committee agenda. It was received after the agenda had already gone out. So we're a bit behind on moving things forward with it, but.
Yes, Claire. Thank you. Councillor.
Can I request the report includes some possible sources of funding? For the seating? I mean, the community board comes to mind for the circular.
Makes sense.
No money there, Phil.
We've got to make sure we get some of it spent in Buckingham, whatever there is.
Councillor Allen.
Could I ask that the video be resent out? So I can't remember seeing it. I can't remember seeing it.
Forward it to you at the end of the meeting.
Thank you.
Sent out again today, I think. I've certainly picked it up as an email today. Again.
No.
But it might have just been that somebody else had opened it.
I would say to members, It is for internal consumption at the moment, we don't have permission to publicly share it at a time. If that does change, then we will obviously circulate it more widely.
Have you seen it?
I couldn't open it.
I'll forward it.
Yeah, so, if everyone's happy, we'll move on to the next agenda item, if we discuss that one. Which is 30 Park Green Spaces Working Group, receive a report from town.
Oh, okay.
Members, there are quite a few issues. We don't actually have overall policies for our parks and green spaces, and there are a number of issues, some of them quite emotive, that are happening currently in our parks and green spaces. So my proposal is that we get together outside of a formal meeting, have a working group and talk through what we would like to see from some parks and green spaces policies, and then get something together that everybody can support, and then bring it back to environment for future agreement.
I've got Fran, then John, then Lisa, then Robin.
Thank you. I propose that we accept the recommendation and form a working group. Agreed.
Seconded. Yep. Thank you, Lisa. All those in favour? Okay.
Do we need volunteers now for it?
Do people still?
No, I think I do the same as events, people can write in.
I'll email around because not every member's here.
Yeah, no, very much so.
John?
I'm very happy to be part of the working group, so please include me, particularly as I hope, and maybe we just clarify this now, that we can maybe talk about new playgrounds and making space for girls on those new playgrounds. It's another subject that Lena and I have talked about in the past, and I would hope that we'd be able to do that in the policy stuff.
So I believe, if I'm right, that this Parks and Green Spaces Policy Working Group would be all of our parks and green spaces, present and potentially future.
I suspect the start of the meeting will be a conversation as to what members do want to look at, what's important, what we want the working group to focus on, so.
Right.
The advantage of it being an informal working group is spread far and wide, yeah.
That's very done.
Oh, well, I'm pretty sure we used to have a parks policy, because I remember when Mike was on environment. So if you're saying that we don't have one, then I wonder where that one is, because there was a lot of hard work went into that. It's probably very out of date.
Quite a lot of policies,
There was a specific park policy.
We could do with something up to date that covers all of our parks and green spaces.
No argument there, but there was a bulk of work that went into one, so there is something kicking around somewhere.
You can bring that along.
Yeah. Yeah.
Councillor Secretary.
I hope we don't, we need to pull that out, and that can, as Lisa said, I remember the policy going through, took a lifetime to produce.
Yeah.
Resulted in us not having Embleton. It started us losing the heartland, because the suggestion of the council, we couldn't take on any more lands till we had a green policy. By the time we'd actually done the policy, we couldn't actually ask to have the land, and it had gone off. So so because they'd got fed up of waiting for us having a policy on managing our parks, so we missed out on having the heartlands. That would have been Buckingham Town Council did it, hadn't been for that. That was smart.
Phrase myself better. We don't have one modern overarching parks and green spaces policy.
So what I want to make sure is that, in saying what I just said, that we're not going to fall into the same trap again, that we can't do anything till we have a policy, because there are going to be lots of things happening now, and a policy is going to, if it's a good policy, it's going to take quite a long time to draft. That we don't then come up to the same mistake in case lands and pieces of land come up we might want to consider, and so we won't have it until we've done a policy. Because we lost that heartland, and that would have been ours at the time. I'm right, aren't I, Andy? Thank you. So I'm just careful that one thing doesn't prevent another. You know, I also think it's great that we've got lots of different members now to when we produce that other policy, which means that it can be enriched with different people's imaginations of how it ought to be done. and bringing on some of the things. Also, when we wrote that policy, the environment wasn't such a issue at the time. It wasn't the major issue. And I think there's some environmental things that we might want to put in the policy that we didn't do at the time, because when we wrote that policy, it was more about linear lines. So, you know what I mean? It wasn't looking at that. Maybe we would want to consider long-term environmental impacts of what happens in our park. That could be something that comes out in the discussion.
Yeah.
Whoever makes themselves available to do it. But I just think that we don't want to lose opportunities in the future.
Agreed. So, will you
I'll let
email?
you know around who wants to be involved, and then we will do a legal poll of availability.
Lovely, so that brings us on to item 14, I believe, which is the action report. Do I talk through the action report?
It's up to you how you want to vote it down.
I think generally people just put their hands up
Fantastic.
and bring things to attention that they
Yeah.
want clarification on.
Thank you. Councillor Stutchbury, then Councillor Harvey.
Unless I read it wrong, wasn't there something about community centre roof? Which was.
Yeah, there is
1,
2, 3, 4,
Fourth and
5,
bottom.
6 down
Yeah.
in light blue.
Is that what was the ongoing discussion of that? And will it's ongoing, or are we gonna, at what point are we gonna close that discussion down about it? I don't want to go into the detail of what it might be on, because we've done it here, but it is a large part of our responsibilities, that roof, and it's big spans, isn't it? And I'm worried that all these things do the community centre need to start putting together some prices around this stuff. We keep moving from one thing to another, and the cumulative of it is quite large now. It's not like we have any income out of the place to fund any of it. So maybe when it comes back, maybe it's something that the chair can discuss with the vice chair and that, about how we bring it back with some information around that, because we haven't really discussed the liabilities of that community centre for a long time, and the roof is a huge liability and a huge expense. If something had to be done to that, and I'm sure I'm not suggesting that's what's got to be done, but it's on here, so I imagine there's something that we need to know.
Yeah.
It's in progress. We're not there yet. We haven't got enough to be ask you for a decision. I'm desperately hoping we'll be able to get it on the next agenda for decision. Just not there.
I'm very worried that we're going to be making lots of different decisions about different elements to do with that, and then we're not actually doing a cumulative about what the cost is. I think we need to actually start to, it's one building, one responsibility. We've had numerous repairs and stuff, so I'm just worried that it will click. Sure it won't, but it does worry me.
Councillor Davies.
I think the thing with the roof is the roof needs doing in order to progress the plans, which is already Councillor Harvey's suggestion in the first place, and I think he's got. I think he's been quite patient about it in some respects. Others may disagree. It has been rumbling along a long time. It is something we have agreed to do. So therefore, as the town clerk says, it is something that's still in progress. I do get the thing about there is a lot of money been spent on this building, and we probably do need to have further discussions about the rest of it, not about the roof in particular at the moment.
Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, it is the 14th anniversary more or less. To have some, all those.
It's a teenager.
Just a note that. I was just going to highlight as well that on page 43 or 48 at the top there, the idea, obviously, a survey is stage one, but the idea is to have a city strategy. And I'm looking forward therefore to the report back from the town clerk and the team on how we take forward the ideas that were done on the video and elsewhere into a whole system strategy on seating. So that was the really motion.
Yes, councillor.
It's on the agenda, and what is the timeline around the, because it says about waiting the historic, whatever, on the agenda, what is the timeline around the neighbourhood plan examination?
It was with the examiner, so it's basically, we're running on their timetable now, so.
So it's not, it's on a timetable, but it might be worth perhaps through you, Chair, at some point we get a understanding indication of when that, how long that timeline is, because it's very important that we actually have this Buckingham neighbourhood plan going out in this, what I learned at training the other week. It's actually more important that we have this neighbourhood plan at this present time than for all the other reasons in Buckingham than whatever. So that we can, whether it goes to another meeting planning or whatever, but we understand the timeline around it. We're not going to have a Buckinghamshire plan for at least 2027. So at the earliest date, and that's what they're working to now. And the Avail plan was going to be here. It only took a decade, didn't it? So, you know, I do think we just need to know that ours in, because it's actually going to help us, no end.
Yeah. Yeah, and I suppose as soon as we get an indication from the examiner, that can come back.
Well, they've submitted questions, we've submitted responses, that it's working its way through.
Councillor James.
Can I propose that now that the Buckingham Society have laid and replanted the shrub bed out here, and it's looking very nice, and I thank Councillor Draper for the help that she gave me in kick-starting it all last year when we did our bit of guerrilla gardening.
Well, thanks to both of you.
But now it comes off the action list because the Buckingham Society have now planted it up and removed the dead things. It's the third from the bottom on page 42, 48.
Shrubs bed at community centre.
Thank you. Couldn't see the shrubs for the trees.
It's a shrubbery.
Does that need to be seconded and voted on?
That'll be for completion, yes.
Yeah, so are you seconding that proposal, Councillor?
Yeah, I would second that. So just ask one question as well. It says public seating. Anthony Ralph raised possibility of new bench at the Buckingham Society meeting. The waiting update. I don't know what that means.
Please, can we vote on the shrubbery up and then we'll come back to you?
Yeah.
Thank you. So all those in favour of removing the shrubbery action from the action list? All those in favour? Unanimous? Thank you, Councillor Stockley.
Can I come in on the bench thing? So when we were looking at different places to put new benches, we mooted the idea of putting another bench out here. Obviously it's Buckinghamshire's land, but to sort of mirror the one down the other end, it would probably be on top of where the drain cover is. But to speak to the Buckingham Society about whether they will would put that into their plans, that they were when they were working out the planting scheme that they were going to put in there. I think that might help clarify that.
It didn't. What would be easier, and maybe it's a bit radical, that we have a minute number against those things. We could look them up without asking the rare questions here. There's not a minute number anywhere, but and if I've missed it, I apologise, because all these action lists you can't date and time them.
I'm sure the other action.
I don't know why the minute number's fallen off. I think that's a printing issue.
Because you can't, yeah, you could have gone back.
Well spotted, Robin. Thank you very much for your diligence, and we will have them replaced. If that's.
With new numbers, if
I
not,
think we've lost the column when we've condensed it down, so apologies.
we have different numbers.
I think it's normally landscape,
1, 2, 3,
isn't it, and this has
1, 2,
come out as, it's, yeah.
They will try and get them to reappear.
Magic.
Magic.
It's not, it's just that I could have looked it up before I come here. We'll ask the question.
Any other actions on the action list that people would like to discuss? Okay, in that case.
Thank you, Lucy.
Shall we move forward to item 15, because the compliments and complaints?
You look very nice tonight.
I would like to complain about this chair.
Oh, not meaning that, was it? No, I'm sorry.
So we've got a compliment for our green spaces team, from during the flooding, from November. We don't have to go through, do we go through them all?
No, that's just
Let's
a note,
read
isn't
them and smile.
And thank the office for,
Yeah.
and the Green Spaces team for
Yeah.
their hard
Yeah.
work, please.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I would like to just note that last one, the concern about fat balls being placed in the undergrowth around Bourton Park. I did see that already the estates team have put a post up on social media about it, about, you know, it's great that people are trying to feed birds and wildlife, however, actually hiding fat balls in the undergrowth could be a detriment to some animals.
Yeah.
So thank you for taking swift action on that one. Councillor Harvey, then Councillor Davies.
Yeah, that was, I think, going to encourage the rat population more than anything else.
Yeah.
But the top of page 45, the issue about walking of dogs in public areas, that's something that clearly I think the new working group will seek to address.
Yeah.
But it is, from my experience of social media, it comes up again and again.
Yeah.
People really, some people being injured as well, and other dogs being injured. It's a source of great conflict between people and so on. So I'm just going to log here. We'll discuss it when we get to item 17. That might be worth a news release. I would also like to see the response from the estate manager to that person as to what was actually said, because I think it would help my understanding of what our rules are and enable the rest of the committee as well.
This is an issue. It's a very emotive subject and our rules are not clear. It's one of the things I really would like the working group to look at, to give us as an office better clarity as to what you want us to do. And also to talk through what is enforceable, what isn't enforceable, what is realistic.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, it is one of those things, you know, in Chandos Park, there are signs throughout the park saying dogs must be kept on leads. I know that in Bourton Park, there's an area which is generally considered to be a off-lead dog-friendly zone. But as we all know, people will let their dogs run off lead where they want. And I guess the main thing is, you know, making sure that everyone knows that if a dog is behaving dangerously and you think it's a threat, then that's a police matter.
I think the key is that the dogs should be under control. I've known dogs who you can walk them everywhere and anywhere without needing to use a lead. They would stop at the edge of the pavement. They would do exactly what they want. I could never do that with my dog. Absolutely not.
They are very emotive issues,
Yeah.
and I think that as a council, there's a lot to be said for taking it offline, really thinking them through.
Yeah,
and coming back,
absolutely.
very considered.
Could we see if there was a leader's response to those? But I would like to see what was written. That's the person.
And again, I would probably suggest that that's something offline, because I don't know how.
Yeah, because when we have the working
Can you
group.
circulate just to me or anybody else who wants it? I'd like to see what was written.
I'll have a look, if it's, provided there's nothing particularly personal to the correspondent, I don't see that's an issue, yeah.
Okay, I don't know if it's not to, just need to see what. Thank you.
Robin,
I'm against any, we haven't got a policy. Formed as chair, so it'd be inappropriate to just make a vacuous press release about it till we got a policy. And then that's the time if the policy comes through and it's agreed that we then make a comment about what the policy is. If we're just raising a concern that people can raise on social media anyway, but then they'll ask what is your policy? We'll just look rather stupid. So I think that we need to do it in a proper order with our council. And I think then that's the time when the working group comes back with them, that they're going to consider it. They'll make some good recommendations at that point. I think a press release around what the change of policy might be or how we want it done. But the thing is, we can't actually enforce it, can we? That's another danger. We can't actually enforce it. So, yeah, so, you know, I think that's the time to do.
We need a parky.
Press release when that work done.
With a taser.
Councillor Donahue, then Councillor Allen.
Thank you. As some of you know that we get Microsoft Office in with our a Cloudy, and I was in there looking for the video to show Tony where it was, because it's in there, because Paula puts things in there. And somehow the Bourton Park management plan is in there, 2022 to 2027. And I've just done a very quick search on dogs and there's 13 hits. So if it helps members, I can forward this round to see what has previously been written so that it, you know, we can see whether it still is the same now. Because I don't think the laws have changed very much. They have around dangerous dogs. But yeah, it's just weird. It was in there.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're very welcome.
Tony, then Heather.
I was just going to say, I wouldn't be too concerned about being worried about enforcement if we have something that technically can be enforced, but obviously physically is very difficult to do. What that does do is protect you if there is a very serious incident that people have witnessed. There is an enforcement rule in place, then you then have an act to go on legally. So, you know, bear that in mind.
Thank you, Tony.
I mean, I guess I have an interest because we walk our dogs mostly off lead around the parks most mornings, and we haven't had any incidents at all. And I wouldn't wish for them to be further constrained by the perceived potential threat of another random dog that happens to be bigger than the dogs that's being walked. But the bit I really wanted to raise was if people are being insulted and racially abused in our park, that would seem to be the bigger issue on that complaint. I mean, is that not a police matter? I mean, if that's happening, you know, it feels to be a bigger issue than whether one dog was or wasn't on a lead.
It's
Robin.
Thank you, Heather. That is the most important of it. I presume from you, Chair, that they've revised that they should report them, please. What we really don't want is that to become a common affair in our park, because that will make any dog, maybe you will need a big dog. You know what I mean?
So I believe that Claire's going to bear the response that was given to the.
I can imagine Claire advised them to contact the police if they found they were whatever. You know.
I think it's from the estates manager, but yeah, they'll find out what was said back to them. And Councillor Davies.
As has been said many times, this is a very emotive issue. We're forming a subgroup in order to look at the parks and green spaces, estates, policies, etc. I'd suggest that is the place to be having these discussions rather than in public session.
Yeah. So in that case, then, shall we agree that we've received the compliments and complaints law?
Agreed.
And we will move on to item 16, which is the bridge removal tender, and to receive a report from.
So we had the procurement process, because we thought it could potentially be over 30,000, we went Procurement Act compliant. We did a full formal tender process. There were 17 responses of varying qualities opened by myself, Lee, and the Mayor. Lee has formulated them into a table on page 48 for you. We have the commercial assessment score, the quality assessment score, and tender price. And his recommendation is that number 14 in a completely dispassionate evaluation process scored the highest.
Councillor.
I think that was first.
Davis, then Harvey.
I think we probably, I'm like, there's 1 point between 12 and 14. And 12 is some £2,000 less. And obviously we don't know where these companies are based. And we don't know if any of them are local, which is part of our procurement policy.
5% of the weighting is assurance of supply demonstrated by the use of local labour supply chain.
So it was something that was considered as part of the evaluation criteria, but we have to do that in a so we can add a weighting to it, we can consider it important, but we can't make it the distinguishing reason for it. The 12 is cheaper, but that again is part of their score, so that is taken into account.
I would suggest that we go with the recommendations unless 12 is a more local company.
Done that
In
before.
which case we'd go with 12.
Done that recently, haven't we?
Yeah.
Just having a
We
look.
did that on the planters or
Yeah.
something, didn't we?
My recommendation would be strongly that we had 17 at least 17 companies. People will watch this. It needs to be a fair evaluation process, and it was weighted as part of the evaluation criteria, the localism. My strong recommendation would be to go with Lee's recommendation.
Would I be right in thinking so the second table there, so you've got the quality assessment score and the commercial assessment score, is the assurance of supply, so the use of local labour, etc., and local sourcing, is that part of the commercial assessment scoring there?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So the second column, that's our quality assessment, which
It's not clear, is it? But yeah, basically.
so you can see
Because
that
it's
14
broken
has a
down.
quality assessment score of 33, whereas 12 has a quality assessment score of 28. So there is, although there may only be 1 point in the final total evaluation score, that's 5 points difference in the quality assessment score, which I think I personally would say is worth considering when we're thinking about quite a significant spend.
If I may, Chair, as well, I know members have had a lot of concerns over this. We are going to bring something to the next resources meeting, clarifying and looking at how we can do this in a way that members are more comfortable with. But we do have to when we're getting into these larger contracts, we have to be careful that we have a professional, dispassionate and transparent.
Well, it is dispassionate and transparent, is it not, that we have no idea who these companies are, where they're based, etc. And the assurance of supply is only 5 points out of the 5 percentage points out of the total.
I suppose that 5, say, for example, and it's purely hypothetical because we don't know anything other than the numbers that are in front of us, If that those 5 points for the local, the 5 points which make up for the total 100-point score, which are allocated to the local assurance, that could, I don't know what to say, yeah.
How about then, this is a recommendation to go to full council because of the amount of the valuation of it.
I mean, what the recommendation is to go to 14. If it went to full council, we wouldn't have any more information than what we've got. So I feel like we can make a decision here.
Yeah.
It's just whether or not
If it's a
to accept the
recommendation,
or not.
recommendation.
4 people have had their hands up and been waiting patiently, so I'm going to 5. And we go Robin, John, Heather, Lisa, Andy.
I'm going to make a proposal that I actually concur with what the mayor says about what we're doing. We can't answer that question here, and we've been waiting a very, very long time to actually get this done. What I think needs to be done is, in resources, we need to have a way of getting, maybe that can be done in confidential, a way of getting more clarity, because we are spending public money, and we're elected to spend public money, and there's not enough information here for us as elected members. But I think in this instance, we need to get on and make this decision so that it can progress, because we're going to wait for council, full council, one thing, it'll be a long time, and Lee's been working on this for a long time. It took a long time to get the rights of way issues sorted out, so I don't think we need to delay it. I propose that we agree the recommendation on condition that the resources report brings forward something so that we can get more member involvement and clarity around it. There's no point in being elected just to know somebody else's homework. We have to find out what halfway house in that, and I understand the clerk's points about confidentiality in that, but there are ways around this. But I propose that we agree recommendation, and then that's going to be seconded or not.
I've already made a proposal which was to agree the recommendation unless the number 12 was a more local company.
My recommendation is that I don't think that is wise. There has been a scoring, it has gone through a scoring process, and that has been, so my members can make the decision they wish, but my recommendation would be to go with these, take these advice.
So, as I say, we have 2 proposals, neither of which has been seconded yet. Councillor Davis's proposal was first. Would anyone like to ask? Anyone wants to second it? Okay, so then Councillor Stutterbury's proposal, which was that we accept the recommendation, but that more information is brought to the next resources meeting. Okay, all those in favour?
So we're agreeing to the recommendation.
Yeah. So should you get it? Okay. All those in favour? Everyone bar Councillor Davis. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Did anyone else want to talk on it? I know you had your hand up.
Yes.
Yeah, Jonathan, Heather.
Okay, under the evaluation criteria, there are 4 criteria listed with differential rating, weighting and so on. I would have liked to have seen those 4 itemised in the eventual list, because what's happened is the quality assessment score has matched together 3 of those criteria to a score out of 40, and then the commercial assessment is a score out of 60. You can see that. Because of the issue with the debate we've had, can I suggest that in future times, if we've got 4 criteria, that we actually show the 4 criteria, because that would have answered possibly Councillor Davis's question as well.
Absolutely, I do agree with that. This has come up across a few committees. It is a matter for resources to look at a procurement policy. It's clearly something we do need to sit down and have more consistency and clarity over, so I understand the concerns. And I've got my hands up, that could have been clearer, I still apologise for that.
Okay, thank you.
To me, it was perfectly clear. I appreciate looking at it with the benefit of the fact that I hadn't gone, spent hours going through the assessment criteria, that obviously it isn't pretty clear, so yes, I apologise for that.
Heather.
Yeah, I just want to say I have frequently been on the other side of the table bidding in for public money, and it is important that whatever evaluation criteria you set out at the beginning of the process is what you actually use to evaluate the tenders. So you can't really look at it and then say, well, actually, I wish I'd given a little bit extra on here or on here, because then you make the whole process invalid and it can easily be challenged. So I think that was why I was supporting going with the existing proposal. The other thing I'm wondering, if people really do want more emphasis on local supply, what scope we have for increasing the proportional score to assurance of supply in future tenders.
Unless I'm pretty sure that the tender process was brought to this committee and was agreed, so members did get to see what the tender process was going to be in advance. Did it come here or did it go?
I don't think we actually saw it in detail. I think we just agreed to a tender process. But I can look it up. I don't remember seeing any.
Councillor Statutory.
I think even if we had it, Heather would not have seen that policy. And so that's, from Heather's point of view, it means nothing if we'd agreed a policy. So I think the fact that we're going to go away and look at these things and come back to the resources is the right thing to do. And I think the point Heather made, she said she looked at it from the other side about not having something that could be challenged. That's another important point which I haven't considered, I admit. So I think that's got to be part of that discussion as well. Because but I also do think member involvement, we are here, that needs to be considered as well. Is what we're here for. Where the line is with that has to be decided, but I think that's important. Other people have got expertise around here I've never had, and I think they could be bringing to fair.
So in that case, you've voted on it, so we can move on to the next agenda item, which is number 17, news releases. We had any news releases?
We've had, the fat balls is currently one at the moment, the posters are ready to go up on the notice boards, all looking very nice.
Stoma.
Fantastic.
Very good.
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah,
Was
really,
a long
really
time
good.
ago when we all discussed
It was a
that.
year ago.
We've got,
It came out from correspondence from Buckingham Live 24.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
because I have a friend of mine who he's my age and he recently suffered from colon cancer and he now uses a stoma bag. And he said, we were chatting about it the other day, he said he lives in Bourton Park, so not around here, but it makes you see things in a very different light.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy that our town is taking one more step towards making life a little bit easier for everyone that lives or visits here. That was such great.
When we originally discussed it, Lee made a really important point that, and I maybe Fran did as well, that we can't really say we'd like other people to do anything about stoma bags until we sorted our own house out. But there was the point made that many of the places you go around the town, you couldn't actually dispose. I think maybe we need to consider carefully how we would do that if we did it, because yeah, they can use the public toilets, but if you're in a restaurant, from what I can understand, you have any balance at the moment, you can't get rid of it. Or the stoma bag. And I think that may be something perhaps we need to consider in the future, whether we're agenda to discuss how that will be done. What we don't want to do is go around saying to somebody, you haven't got this, you're a bad person. I don't think that's where we are. But large corporations who have got who could probably do it in their corporations, you know.
Aldi.
Yeah.
Councillor Davis.
I think most accessible toilets do have disposal for waste products.
Yeah.
Whether that includes stoma bags, I wouldn't know, but it's something I will certainly look up.
I lost my auntie because she's just recently had to have one fitted because of cancer.
You know, you don't want to go down there and accuse of people doing something that they can't do. The big thing is, I mean, I don't know whether those are for a certain use in there and they could be sanitary towels or something else. I think the stoma storage might be something different, I don't know. I'm just saying. But we could go to the next step then and try to encourage have a community which is inclusive.
Yeah.
But we couldn't do that at the first place because the view was that we could sort our own house out before we started going, because we just looked silly.
Councillor Donahue.
Thank you. Even something as simple as a coat hook is seriously missing in a lot of accessible toilets. And so we're just expected to use a toilet with our coats on. And it's sometimes the simplest of things that when you need them, you realise that they're not there. So yeah, I'll definitely ask my auntie about that. And you've got friends that, so we can find out more.
Say thank you to the Green Spaces team for actioning it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was worth agreeing it, wasn't it? 12 months, but we've got there, haven't we?
And they look great as well. So that's all news related to those. Next item on agenda is chair's announcements. I've only just become the chair, so I don't have any announcements.
Well, we want it to be better next time, have an announcement.
I'll try. I'll jump on the spot. So date for the next meeting will be Monday, 28th of July, and I hope to see you all there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well done.